So after I give the introduction, then you can share your screen.
Yeah, you can just make it very brief introduction and all that.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a live session with International Council for Circular Economy, where the most innovative ideas are shared to drive social and business entrepreneurs to achieve a sustainable future. ICC is one of the largest international networks for professionals, corporates, and organizations working in circular economy in India. Our mission is to accelerate the transition to a circular economy that is restorative and regenerative by design. It is working towards enhancing resource efficiency and promoting circular economic models. This talk will help us add value to the circular economy community through expertise and knowledge share. Today, in the fifth session of Circular Chat, we'll have a discussion with Mr. Sujeet Samaddar, presently an advisor at Material Recycling Association of India and Distinguished Fellow at the Center for Air Power Studies, New Delhi. He is the founding member and honorary secretary of the Society for Aerospace, Maritime and Defense Studies. He has been an international fellow at the JIIA Tokyo and Admiral R.D. Kothari Fellow at the USI New Delhi. Mr. Samadar was a senior consultant, NITI Aayog, Government of India until January 2019, where he drafted India's first material recycling policy, the vehicle scrapping policy, and other documents for various ministries on recycling and circular economy. He was CEO Rosmerta Recycling Industries Private Limited until March 2020. His offline professional interest is to bring in smart technologies to India for sustainable development, particularly on recycling and promoting the circular economy. With this, we will begin our circular chat, and I'll ask my first question from Mr. Sujit. So, Mr. Sujit, we would like you to elaborate on what is green technology. So, if you could take us through that, you are you have the rights to share the screen.
Okay, let me quickly begin by thanking you for this opportunity of going with you today and your kind words of introduction. And of course, it's a matter of great passion for me to talk about the circular economy and the technologies that are going into it. I hope you're able to see my screen.
Yes, your screen is
Okay,
visible.
so we're going to run this through. I'm going to talk about green technologies and how they impact the circular economy. Just to answer your question, first of all, I want to look at this slide on the circular economy and the SDGs. In the center, you will find I put SDG number 3, which is good health and well-being. That is the entire focus of our life, especially after COVID-19. Now, to have good health and well-being, you need, on the one hand, peace, justice, and strong institutions, and on the other hand, you need partnership for the goals. And when these three things are put together, you are able to work towards getting to the SDGs. Now, as far as the circular economy is concerned, we are well aware of the various business models. I don't want to get into it. We know about life extension, about shared mobility and platforms, resource recovery, product as a service, circular supplies, and all of them get meshed together with the Industry 4.0, where amongst all the other things that is happening about Industry 4.0, the larger amount of consumption that we are doing, the whole business of reverse logistics that has to get into place, new governance frameworks are coming in, and a variety of other issues. But today, my subject will be mostly on technologies. When you look at green technologies, I put them into five baskets. First is, of course, energy. When you now look at energy at the topmost level, you have renewable energy, and on the other hand, you have non-renewable energy, and now you have a new sort of line called waste to energy. And under all these, non-renewable are fossil fuels, gas, etc., and all of that. Under renewable energy, we have solar, wind, hydrocarbons, fuel cells, thermal energy, geothermal energy, tidal energy. All of that is part of that basket. Waste to energy is the combustion of waste matter to drive turbines in generation of steam, and from generation of steam we can derive electricity. That's the first basket. As far as the second basket of materials and manufacturing is concerned, the green technologies are certainly related to green chemistry, where you're looking at chemical reactions. In fact, I was just reading about a technology of using iron dust as a fuel. Can you imagine? Iron dust as a fuel. Adding iron is highly combustible when it is in microparticles, and if you add iron to it, that is a exothermic reaction that generates heat. And I'm in discussion with some friends to look at how we can use iron as a fuel to power ships in the future. So that's a green chemistry model that you're looking at. There are a whole lot of nanotechnologies also which come in. And within the materials and manufacturing, of course, the industry 4.0, additive manufacturing technologies, this whole business of design to recycle, design to disassemble, design to a cost. All of this has gone under materials and manufacturing. As far as environment technology is concerned, again, you can put them into three different baskets: water, air, and soil remediation. Under water, you have phytoremediation and bioremediation technologies, which again go towards groundwater recharging and that sort of thing. Then you also have river rejuvenation technologies. Then you also have things like DEM, your DEM models, your digital elevation models for determining water flows. And these go into generating reservoirs. And this can be done with a lot of space technologies to be doing that. We work on this sector also. There's also river rejuvenation, and there's of course the marine life ecosystem, a very important source of food and protein for all of humankind. We need to balance that in some way. So that is all part of the water sector. On air, I think everybody is well aware. They are talking about emissions. As far as soil is concerned, soil remediation is a very serious business, and we need to make sure that our soil remains enriched with the required nutrients so that food at least remains a circular uh, factor. So that's environment. On mobility, I think much has been said. Everybody's talking about shared mobility. We are looking at in under mobility technologies which relate to propulsion. Earlier, we used to just rely on the IC engine, but today we've moved to fuel cells, to batteries, to various other methods of propulsion rather than just the internal combustion engine of the past. It's also IT enabled, which allows for shared mobility, which brings in a lot of circularity. Similarly, the hulk of the vehicle itself can be designed in such a way that you can extract the maximum value out of it. So these are things that I have spoken about in this particular slide. So just one moment, have I missed something? IT. IT is the last one, and I think I will talk about it as we go further in this slide. So let's look at renewable energy very quickly. These are your renewable energy sources. All of them use very advanced technologies. Solar used to be at one time only solar photovoltaic. Today we are looking at solar thermal. Wind used to be on land. Today we have it offshore. We have biomass from not only biofuels, bioproducts, and biopower, but also from agri waste, municipal solid waste, and all of that can go in. Hydrogen, I'll talk about much later. Other energy sources from geothermal, heat pumps, etc., are not yet cost effective. And certainly, one technology that Indian Navy, has been doing for some time is on ocean thermal energy conversion technologies, which is a fantastic technology for islands. The other subjects are well known to you. Since we are a little tight for time, I'm going to run this through as quickly as possible so we have more time for questions. On environment, I think this slide is self-explanatory. Those of you who can see it, environment actually contributes most to health and happiness, which again brings me to my slide number 2. That ultimately it's SDG number 3, which is central to our life, and all these issues about being carbon neutral, being water positive, etc., are all part of the environment packet. Sustainable mobility, we already spoke about, and I'm here want to tell you again that there are a whole lot of new technologies which are happening for sustainable mobility, which will finally reduce emissions, which will also reduce clogging of streets, also reduce whole lot of materials which are otherwise going to landfills because they were designed in a particular way to coming back into the economy through sustainable mobilities. Then let's look at material flows. I think this is a very important slide, and I'd just like to spend a little time on the principles of this. First principle is non-renewable resources must not be consumed at a rate which is faster than at which its renewable substitutes can be found. This is the first principle. Second is a renewable resource should not be consumed at a pace higher than at which it can be generated. And finally, the absorption and regeneration capacity of the natural environment should never be exceeded. These are principles that we have to now find guidance in the way we proceed with our lives. This is a slide from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. It's a pretty busy slide. I wish I had more time to it, but he basically talks about here about technical materials on one side and biomaterials on the other side. And this slide shows you how materials once processed continues to remain in the economy until their exhaustion is achieved, and then only they go to the landfill. And of course, the amount that goes to the landfill has to be kept to the very minimum. There are technologies for it. IT for CE is something which is going to be the future clearly, and that is going to be based on blockchain technologies, on the Internet of Things, and it basically blockchain is where we are going to see a lot of work in, especially when we are looking at extended producer responsibility issues, when you're looking at PRO concepts, because in the highlighted part, the blockchain design supports two main uses of the circular economy: proving the product origin and incentivizing positive behavioral change. So at all stages of a product's life, through the time it is produced till the time it is finally reaches end of life and get back into the economy, blockchain technologies can georeference it, can identify its ownership, and see what is happening to it over a period of time. This is something which I think will be quite a game changer as the circular economy is concerned. Similarly, Internet of Things is also going to be the next internet, next tool which will bring in a whole lot of comfort in the world of recycling and circular economy as the technology progresses further. Of course, government will have to legislate to ensure that these IoT issues and blockchain technologies are brought in. Related subject is, of course, artificial intelligence, which works across the entire issues from materials to supply chain and reverse logistics to manufacturing, use and reuse, recycling. We can discuss it in the subsequent time when we have, but I want to run this presentation through so that we are all up to speed on what I have in mind, and then we can discover what you have in mind, and then we can have a good conversation. This slide has been is from again the MacArthur formation. It talks about how AI technologies can achieve circularity in consumer electronics. It's a very nice graphic, and those of you who have an interest can look at the Ellen MacArthur Foundation site, and you will find this slide there. But basically, AI technologies achieve two things: it pushes data to the point of need, and it can be pulled by the person in need. This is the basic things that AI technologies can bring to artificial intelligence. Now, very quickly from here, I just want to talk about a case study and then tell you how we are looking at it. I've taken steel because it's a pretty important industry in our country. Every ton of recycled steel saves all these various numbers which you see here in terms of ore, coal, water, energy, and greenhouse gas emissions. Now, the government of India issued the steel scrapping policy in 2020 with a target of creating 300 million tons per annum of steel production by 2030. Today, we produce about 110 million tons of steel. So it's a big jump. So what is the implications? Implications would be on scrap. Implications would be on oxygen, which goes into making these steels, and power. First, let's look at the scrap requirements for steel. Today, about 70% of them is through the induction furnace and electric arc furnace route. That gives you a roughly about 100 million metric ton of scrap required by 2030, where you can see my pointer. I'm going fast on it. Today, we have only 25 to 27 million metric tons, out of which we import 7 million metric tons. Even if the automobile vehicle scrapping policy comes through and we get a lot more discipline into the scrapping industry of ferrous scrapping industry in India, our deficiency of scrap will be 50 million metric tons if you have to get 300 million metric tons of steel in 2030. That's not a small number. Now let's look at oxygen. Oxygen is an important requirement for making steel, and here you can see that we would probably need 16 billion meter cubes of per day of oxygen, or roughly about 23,000 metric tons of oxygen per day. Our present industrial capacity is 5,000 metric tons per day. So we have a lot of catching up to do if we have to do our achieve our targets of steel production. When you look at power, our power requirements will go to 300,000 megawatts to produce 300 metric tons of million tons of steel in a day. So these are not small numbers. So therefore, we need to think of that this is not going to work. Business as usual is not going to be sustainable. We need disruptive technologies, at least in the steel sector, and the same technologies can also go to cement, to aluminium, to all the other sectors in the metal sector, but also in other sides also. Many of these things have applications across other domains of recycling, whether it's paper, glass, rubber, plastics, whatever. So I'm looking at looking at solutions which will provide green oxygen for one on through a VPSA system, green oxygen plus an online VPSA hybrid system, and finally hydrogen electrolysis. So I want to focus on hydrogen electrolysis. A hybrid energy generation system uses both renewable and non-renewable sources, extensively more renewable rather than non-renewable. The sources can be from solar, biomass, wind, microhydels, etc. All of that goes into green energy generation, and from there you have a transformer which converts all that into captive consumption or for synchronization with the grid. Then, how does it look like? So basically, it's a hydrolysis system where you put electricity across the two terminals of the cathode and anode, and you generate hydrogen or oxygen from the respective terminals. How does it look like? It looks like this. This is it. But there's a hell of a lot of technology involved into doing this. We are working with some Canadian partners in this sector, and it's a very interesting technology, not so easy to do. Of course, it is very, very clean. It displaces fossil fuels. There are no harmful, pardon my spelling of harmful, emissions. And it also makes the entire recycling process green by further reducing emissions and further reducing dependence on fossil fuels for even recycling of steel, which in some way or the other you still need to use natural virgin material for some requirements. Even those can be cut down. Of course, cost is a very important factor which comes down again. So what are the performance metrics? Here I'm down to only using 0.55 kilowatt hour per normal meter cube of produce. Hydrogen is H2O, so it is in the ratio of 2:3. So with that energy, I can get 0.66 normal meter cube of oxygen, hydrogen on one side, and 0.37 on the other side. How does this look like? And this is where the state secret is, which is the plant that we are trying to put together for a hybrid plant. Now, I'll just take a minute to understand it. First of all, you have a solar plant here. To generate the requirements of what I have done, the various numbers here, I'll take you through in the next 1 or 2 minutes. My requirement is to have 1 megawatt. This powers a VPSA, which produces 1500 normal meter cube per hour of oxygen, which produces 750 metric tons of steel in an induction furnace, right? This is the first line. How do I get this? To get that 1 megawatt operating at 70% efficiency or so, I need 1.4 megawatt. Where do I get my 1.4 megawatt from? I get it from batteries, and batteries comes from the solar system. For working 6 hours a day, which is very, very nominal for a solar plant in India, investment is about 3 crores, and I need 1.5 acres of land for it. And when I'm not using it, I can upload it to the grid. Now, so this is one route to get my 1.4 megawatt. The second way of getting it is through a fuel cell. And my fuel cell has to be at 1.5 megawatt to get 1.4 megawatt. To power a fuel cell, I need so much 1150 odd meter cube of hydrogen. How do I get the hydrogen? I get it from an electrolyzer. This electrolyzer is overcapacity electrolyzer, which actually does 1800 and 1200, so 3000 meter cube of hydrogen. From the electrolysis produced, I tap 1200 to make my fuel cell move. With my fuel cell, I work my 1.4 megawatts down to 1 megawatt, and I get my 750 tons of steel out of that. The surplus that I have goes back to the market or goes back to power another fuel cell. And that other fuel cell again works on the same principle, feeds back into the electrolyzer's energy. And to start this particular fuel cell, I can either use the grid or use the battery pack to generate it. Now, this you can see is extremely clean technology, which has got zero emissions. There is just zero emissions in this. And all the surplus oxygens that you can generate from here, which is quite a large number, 1500 meter cube at 99.9% purity, can be downgraded to 93%, and I can still get the oxygen that I required from my induction furnaces for making my 750 tons per day of steel. So, this is just a case study to show that how different and diverse technologies can be used for the circular economy, where you're not only just doing recycling of scrap at one end, but you're also using it for a variety of other purposes to ensure that our planet remains clean and environmentally secure for as long as we can. So this completes my short presentation. If you have some questions, I'll take that on. I'm sorry I tried to rush it. I was late, so
No,
I'm sorry for that.
that's
So I don't know
completely
how to get rid
fine.
of this.
You can
Has
just
it
stop
gone?
presenting.
Has it gone?
No, it hasn't.
So how do I do that?
You just have to click on stop presenting, stop screen share.
Okay, where is that now? Okay, anyway, so
It
go ahead.
must be there on the top, I guess, on the top of your
Ah,
screen.
yeah, it says stop share. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Oh,
Yes,
so you're
that's
back again. Thanks. Sorry
yeah.
for that rush presentation. I wish I could have spent much more time on this, but
That's completely fine. So it was very knowledgeable and very interesting. So
okay.
thank you for
Thank you.
that. Yeah.
Thank you.
So we'll move on to the questions now. The next question, sir, for you is: what, according to you, are the future alternate renewable energy options, especially considering the large scale production?
Yeah, that's a very good. For the foreseeable future, today I was just reading about how various ministries were trying to push together concepts on, continuing to mine coal, so that coal remains the fuel of choice for the next 10 years. But this penalty on the environment is very huge. We have already shut down a large number of coal mines in India, but coal-fired power stations are going to remain. Secondly, so as far as grid is concerned, we'll continue to see nuclear, we'll continue to see hydroelectric, we'll continue to see coal, we'll also continue to see a large amount of gas for the future. This is going to remain in India for some time to come. On the renewable sources, where we see that we'll have the maximum amount of traction, will certainly be in the solar side, where the efficiencies of solar panels have gone up very very high now. From some days to be around 13 to 14%. Today we are able to achieve in the lower 20s or mid 20s efficiency levels for panels. But that is also putting up a whole lot of challenge in terms of disposal of these solar panels in due time. So that is solar. As far as wind is concerned, offshore wind is a good idea. In the US, there's a lot of work which is happening on offshore wind, but that also brings in a lot of challenges in terms of corrosion, of being able to transfer the energy from offshore to local resources. You can do that. There are also mini hydel plants that are coming up. And as far as the transportation sector is concerned, I'm quite clear in my mind that whilst we are looking at lithium oxide batteries for all sorts of propulsion means, but sooner or later we'll find hydrogen as the fuel of choice for most transportation issues, whether it is ships, whether it is hydrogen, or whether it's aircraft, whether it is cars. They are all going to be powered by hydrogen sooner or later, whose output is just going to be water, is going to be clean all the time, and that is where we are headed. It might take us another maybe 10 years or so, but fuel cell driven mobility solutions are certainly going to be there. As far as environmental technologies are concerned that we spoke about, but energy for industrial applications will continue to be coming in from the grid, unless hybrid power plants are generated on the lines that I've said, which can be a huge savings for the recycling industry, particularly steel, aluminium, paper, glass. These sectors will can benefit largely by installation of such plants designed by our engineers in India and from abroad working together. Yeah, I hope that answers something. Yeah.
It definitely does. And as you were speaking about hydrogen, our next question is related to that. And we would want to know if hydrogen is a safe alternative to fossil fuels, and does India have this technology?
See, safety is a matter of protocol. For example, even fossil fuels and gas is dangerous. I mean, you have cooking gas at home, but that doesn't mean that every residential building is exploding or some such thing. There's a protocol on the use of the piped gas that we get into our house, and that makes it safe to use. Similarly, so for hydrogen, of course, it has got a very toxic amount of power in it when it contacts. But today, technologies have developed to be able to make the right sort of containers which can hold hydrogen at 900 bar. Can you imagine 900 bar, which is a hell of a lot of oxygen into one cylinder, which can then be utilized in a graded way for different applications. So, as far as safety of hydrogen as a fuel is concerned, I don't see a real challenge there, because the technology is now moved ahead to make sure that the hydrogen is contained in a way that makes it safe, and its release is regulated by some sort of let's say software control devices, etc., which make sure that it does not become a hazard. So in my net, I would think that's where we are. As far as using hydrogen as a fuel is concerned, a lot of experimentation going in, but we still have not gone very much further in it. And I certainly hope Fuel cell technologies are being developed by the DRDO for our submarines in for the Indian Navy submarines in Cochin. Some success has been achieved there, but to use fuel cells on automotives and aircraft engines, we have a long way to go. And I'm sure with everybody's efforts, we can close that gap. But my sense is hydrogen is the fuel of the future, and it's called green hydrogen now. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Sujit, for answering that. And since this technology uses water, which is a scarce resource anyway, so is
Mhm.
that a sustainable solution? And has LCA been done for this technology yet?
See, for everything that you get, you have to pay for something. So, whilst water may be a scarce resource, I'm not looking at some very high quality water. As the wastewater treatment infrastructure in this country grows, today we have, I think, probably maybe more than 1,000 sewage treatment plants which are giving out very high quality water. There's nothing wrong in using sewage treated water for electrolysis. So it's quite possible in the future to have fuel cells located close to sewage treatment plants so that the treated water goes into the electrolysis to generate hydrogen, oxygen, which goes back into the oxygen and they combine and make water again. And that water cycle goes on. After some years, it rains. And so whatever you have spent as hydrogen and oxygen comes back to you as water. It's a complete circularity because that's the first time when water is being used uh, for for doing something. At the end of it, water is being generated to replenish it. So my sense is in the future there are smart businessmen who are here in this forum or who are looking at opportunities. It could be a good idea to co-locate hydrogen electrolysis plants and fuel cell plants close to sewage treatment plants so that you get the water from treated sewage, which works equally good for electrolysis to generate hydrogen, which goes to power either IC engines. You can have hydrogens to power IC engines or to drive fuel cells. Driving hydrogen, in fact, before petrol was used to run the first engines were actually driven by hydrogen in 1807, I think. The first engines were actually hydrogen powered, not diesel or petrol or gas, hydrogen. So, it exists at that level. Sorry.
Yeah. That's all right. That's completely fine. Thank you, sir, for being with us today. And that's it from my side. It was really quick and very informative. So,
Thank
thank you
you.
for this insightful discussion today. And I'm sure the people who watched the session learned a lot about the new energy or renewable options that will work for sustainable and green technology in the coming future. It is important to understand how affordable and unique approaches in green technologies can make India well positioned to achieve a circular economy. To our audience, we will continue this series with more discussions with esteemed experts from various sectors for a more circular future. The writer for this particular session will be shared on our website, so you can always check that out and also come back to our YouTube channel to check out more of our videos on circular economy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody, and bye bye.